So is Mr. Fantastic underrated? Alright, what is going on, my dudes? We are back here today with another installment of Are They Underrated? And this one's going to be on Mr. Fantastic. Now, Mr. Fantastic was buffed about 7 or 8 months ago, and I feel like many people still view this guy as like a great support champion, and he's a wonderful support champion, but he's so much more on his own as well. There's so much this guy can do, and he has so much utility baked into his kit, on top of the ability to achieve some really nice damage numbers as well. So I've always been a really big fan of Mr. Fantastic, even before the buff. I never really thought he needed the buff, but I mean, he definitely is much improved after the buff. He's a lot less stressful to play, his damage is a little bit better, his support is so much better. It starts with 4 persistent charges instead of 2. It goes up to 9 now instead of 5. So yeah, this guy is definitely as much improved with his buff. But yeah, just as a solo attacker, and if you can build some synergy teams around him, this guy is really good. So if you don't know how Mr. Fantastic works, he's relatively pretty simple. He's another champion, man, that there is just so much text. Oh my god, there is so much text, and guess what? It doesn't matter. I'm just going to tell you exactly how he works, alright? Essentially, how you want to play Mr. Fantastic is you want to place your pre-fights on the opponent. Depending on the matchup, you might want all of them, you might only want 2 of them. We'll go over that in the video as we go along. And essentially, you want to go for 2 special 2s when you can. If you're going for like max damage in a long fight, 2 special 2s, so you have 3 of each debuff, and then you go for a special 3, and you get a big fury based on the amount of debuffs that are on the opponent. A parry counts as well, along with any other external debuffs too, from any nodes or whatnot. So, essentially, he's very simple. His special 1 has a taunt and a stagger, which you pretty much only use in certain situations if you need to place a stagger on the opponent, and of course, we're going to be showing fights like that in this video as well. But in general, you want to go for the special 2s or the special 3. You don't need to go for 2 special 2s before the special 3 every single time. In longer fights, you know, you get that bigger fury. It makes more sense. You get more petrified debuffs if you need that for certain power gain or heal reversal fights. It really depends on the fight. But this guy is really simple. All you need to know is special 2 gives you more debuffs, and then special 3 gives you a fury, and special 1 gives you a taunt. Heavy attack pauses the duration of the pre-fight debuffs on the opponent for I think 3 seconds, and knocking them down refreshes them as well. So the sig ability is also decent. Pretty much, the offensive combat power rate is increased by 23% at Sig 60 for each careful study passive on the opponent. That goes up to 50% at Sig 200. And then also another part is that he gains an additional flat 20% chance to evade any unblockable attack, and this increases by 3% every time the opponent starts an unblockable hit, capped at 50% for basic hits. Another thing he has here is 5% chance to evade each non-damaging debuff on either champion. So essentially, man, you have the opportunity here to make your way up to a 100% chance to evade unblockable hits. Because look, 5% chance to evade for each non-damaging debuff on either champion. So if you have 10 of those, plus, you know, if they evade a bunch of time, if they go to do a bunch of unblockable hits, then you're going to have a 100% chance essentially to evade the unblockable hits. Now, it's going to take a bit to build up to that, but that's pretty cool to have, right? Another thing here is that the physical energy, he just has a nice physical and energy resistance that increases it by plus 900. You can increase the physical with the synergy as well. And of course, attack rating is increased per debuff on the opponent. So that's Mr. Fantastic. That's how he works. Let's start talking about some really nice synergies for this guy. So the first set of synergies is obvious. It's the Fantastic Four. This is the synergy team that makes Mr. Fantastic really freaking good, to be honest. He's really good on his own, but this really boosts his damage up. And the reason being is this synergy right here. If all other champions in this synergy are present, for each unique debuff on the opponent, they take 4% of Mr. Fantastic's current attack rating as direct damage per second, and he starts kind of acting like Void in a way, right? He has that nice passive damage mechanic. Along with that, he also has over here, if at or below 20% health at the start of the fight, heal 10% max health over 6 seconds, otherwise gain 6% of bar power over 6 seconds. That's for the other synergy members, okay? Over here, debuffs last 25% longer. That includes parry stuns as well. Council of Reeds, increase attack rating by 0%, but the potency goes up by 30% by a flat 30% for each other Mr. Fantastic on your team. So that leads us to a good synergy team right here with another Mr. Fantastic. So as you can see, there we go. Boom, boom, boom. Got some attack rating, okay? Now, of course, we have some more, synergies as well here. The Thing gives us the last hit of Special 2, grants a Fury buff for 6 seconds, increasing attack by 15%. The effect is doubled if everyone is present. Over here, this is just with Thing and Human Torch. This one from Human Torch, Rain of Fire. The last hit of Special 1 incinerates the opponent for 6 seconds, and if everyone's there, you also got a heal block. And over here with Mrs. Fantastic, block proficiency increased by 5%, perfect block chance increased by 10%, and if all the champions in the synergy are present, well-timed blocks also inflict a 10% weakness on the opponent as well. Okay? So, there's a really bad champion called Super Skrull. Now, Super Skrull has a lot of these bonuses here. You see that? So all of the 3 Mr. Fantastic Four members, you pretty much get that bonus with just bringing Super Skrull. Unfortunately, the best synergy, the Fantastic Four one, you can't get that with Super Skrull, right? But Mr. Fantastic has some other cool synergies as well. With Dr. Doom, you can gain 5% of your max power each time a buff is nullified or its duration expires off the opponent. So he kind of has like a mystic dispersion thing going on. Really cool synergy. Over here, he has some support synergies, and one of them he benefits from quite a bit. And this one is absolutely amazing. Shared Knowledge, Robotics, Tech and Science champions. Debuffs also apply an indefinite power sting, dealing direct damage equal to 60% of their attack rating when the opponent activates a special attack. Really amazing synergy. Over here for Cosmic Champions and Skill Champions, basic hits pause one of each buff on them for 0.2 seconds. And over here at Mystic and Mutants, champions regain 5% of the power spent on any special attack for each unique special attack they've used in the fight. It's also a decent synergy with Dragon Man as well. Each Careful Study passive on the opponent increases Mr. Fantastic's matching special attacks by 50%. And then one last one here, you can also get some more physical resistance with Hulkbuster. I don't feel like this one is ever worth really bringing in unless you want to use Hulkbuster, right? But it's there. So without further ado, why don't we start jumping into some gameplay with this guy? So we're going to jump into Realm of Legends first, just to go over his simple rotation. We're going to use the Fantastic Four synergy with She-Hulk as well for the power sting. So, like I said, if you're going for like damage with this guy, the best thing you could do is bring the Fantastic Four team and go for the 2 special 2s and the special 3. And you're going to see the damage ramps up quite a bit. So right away, you'll notice he has some decent hits on his basic hits, right? Now, as the fight goes on, this only increases because he gets like what, plus 200 attack for every debuff on the opponent. So as you can see, when the opponent uses a special attack, you get a Careful Study debuff. That's what the little 1 is, and now there's 2. So right now, each one of those is going to be reducing Winter Soldier's special 1 damage by, I believe, 25%. And it's going to be even higher when he uses one more special 1, and now he's going to have a passive, and this passive is going to give me increased offensive combat power rate, and also make his special 1 hit for absolutely nothing at all, okay? So as you can see, we have a lot of debuffs on the opponent. We're going for one more special 2. This is our second special 2. We're going to refresh those debuffs, and now we have all 3 of our pre-fight debuffs. We have a shock debuff, we have a weakness, we have a Careful Study special 2 debuff as well, and there's just so many debuffs increasing our attack by quite a bit. As you can see, we started out with 9,000 heavy attacks, right? 9k heavy attacks. Right now, pretty much ramped up, we're up to like 13k, and also the passive damage is very heavily increased, going up to about 1,500 damage every second, which is not stellar. However, it's better than nothing, man, and it's definitely nice to have just ticking away. Now we're going for the special 3. We parried right before it. We had a bunch of debuffs, and now we're going to activate an absolutely massive Fury based on all the debuffs that we have. So Herbie comes in, knocks him into the wall, and let's see. We're doing some 10k light attacks here. Really good damage. The passive damage is now up to 4,200 every second, a 35k heavy attack, and Winter Soldier just dies from the passive damage. So that is absolutely not too bad at all. We got through Winter Soldier in 85 hits in under 2 minutes, which is definitely not bad at all for Winter Soldier. And keep in mind, this is just a rank 2 616 Mr. Fantastic as well. If he was rank 3 or higher sig, it all would have been faster as well, along with more damage. But like I said, man, 35k mediums after your ramp up is definitely not too bad at all. So, you know, the thing with Mr. Fantastic, he can definitely do some damage, no doubt about it. That's why we went for Winter Soldier. But where Mr. Fantastic really shines is his utility. And, you know, I've made a Void video recently where I pretty much said I wasn't a fan of the RNG involved with Void. Mr. Fantastic is very similar to Void, however, he kind of takes that RNG out of it. Now, this is an old classic fight from 6.1.5, 1% regen Red Hulk. He also inflicts poison, so we brought along Nick Fury and Deadpool. But here we're going to go in here, and we're going to do this fight 2 times, okay? First off, we're going to go in with no despair. We do not have despair on. We are only going to rely on the Petrify Petrify pre-fight, okay? So Petrify Ray, we could put on the second one as well if we wanted to, but we're only going for Petrify here, okay? So what we're going to do here is stack that Petrify 2 more times. Now, there is power struggle here, making this, you know, a little bit more complicated. But as you can see, this Red Hulk here, he's just regenerating and there's nothing you can do. Now, at the moment, we are reducing that regeneration by 40%. We don't have despair on, so it's just 40%, okay? Now, what we're going to do here is go for a special 2, and now it's going to be reduced by 80%, okay? So as you can see, this right here is probably enough for us to get through the fight, right? If we had despair on, it would be really good, but as you can see, we're actually doing damage here against this guy, which is really nice, okay? But we have to get to 1 more special 2 so that we can have a minus 120% petrify, okay? So like I said, with Void, you're kind of at mercy of the RNG. Here with Mr. Fantastic, you always know what you're going to get, and that's why I personally prefer Mr. Fantastic over Void for utility purposes, and also for damage purposes as well, and I feel like they do similar things. But as you can see at this point, the fight is essentially locked down. As long as I knock him down every like 15 seconds, we're pretty much good to go, okay? So as you can see, the Petrify is blocking all healing. It's only minus 120% without despair and without any other debuffs. But this fight is essentially done. That's all we had to do, right? So yeah, we got Red Hulk down, and if we kept going, it would pretty much continue on like this. But now we're going to go over how you should be doing it with despair, okay? So now keep in mind, I talked about sometimes you don't want all the pre-fights, right? So this node has power struggle, so I can't gain... I can't get to my special 2 if he does not get to his special 2, so I don't want to reduce his combat power rate, because with 3 of those, it's going to be at minus 75% defensive combat power rate, which is very powerful in its own right, by the way. But here we're just going to go with these 2. Now each debuff that we place on the opponent is going to have an additional 15% reversal on the healing thanks to the Despair Mastery. We're going to start off by eating a combo here. Alright, very important to do that. But essentially, we're going to go for the same thing. We want to go for 2 special 2s, and you're going to see just how fast this guy melts, and just how greatly this guy can reduce healing and reverse healing very effectively just from the first special 2. And keep in mind, if we put the other debuff on as well, it would be another 30%. Another 30% reverse at the moment. We're already at 80, 110, 125%. We're at minus 125% with only 2 debuffs here. Red Hulk is melting already. We're going to go for the other special 2. We just got another 55%, 70%, and then right there another special 2, another 85%. The way he reverses healing is very consistent and very good, and as you can see, this was a very, very, very quick fight here, and we pretty much just let the 1% regen do all the work on its own. Okay, now that doesn't work for only healing, it also works for power gain as well. Now you guys know this Hyperion if you watch my channel. I've fought this guy a lot over the past few weeks because I always say this is the hardest power gain fight in the entire game, right? I always say that. And I stand by that, man. There's, you know, Supernova on an aspect of evolution. There's 100% increased power gain. Look at the power. Look at the power gain here. We tried this fight with Void and he just didn't stand a chance. So if we can just get to a special 2, it's going to go a long way. Now, on top of that, we also have the stagger on the special 1. That's going to go a long way in controlling his power gain buffs as well. Okay, so I didn't try this fight just going for the special 1s. That may have been a good way to go about it, but we didn't do that. So right away here, we got to the first special 2. There we go. Okay, so now we're at minus 80% power gain. Now keep in mind, with all the nodes that this guy has, he has more than 100% power gain, so we're not even blocking the power gain yet, but we're going a long way in controlling it. If this was a normal Hyperion, his power gain would pretty much be stagnant. And by the time we get the other special 2 off, right, and we're at minus 120%, then it's going to start being reversed. But at this point, he started being a little passive. That's okay. Keep in mind, when the opponent uses a special attack, they get that careful study debuff, and that is going to decrease the power of their special attack, so we were able to survive that pretty easily. Now, if he went for another special 3, it would do probably half that damage, if not even less, because of the careful study passive, okay? But, of course, now that we have all 3 of our petrifies up, well, that's going to go a long way in controlling his power. As you can see, it's much more manageable here, and he kind of looks like a normal Hyperion. Now at this point, I'm going to start spamming special 1s, and the reason why I'm going to be doing that is because I want the staggered debuffs to eat as many power gain buffs as it possibly can. Right, and as you can see, that's going a long way in controlling this fight. I feel like this fight is pretty much under control now at this point. He got passive for a second, he got to a special 3, but aside from that one little blip, I feel like this fight has pretty much been under control the entire time. Right? So Mr. Fantastic is definitely going a long way in controlling this power, and like I said, this is pretty much the highest power gain fight in the entire game. If he can do this one, he can do most of them, and that's a very, very impressive thing to see. Now, the not the Mr. Fantastic, the She-Hulk synergy went a really long way in helping that damage as well with the power stings too. But you know, Mr. Fantastic can do a lot of really great things without synergy members as well. So here we're going to go into Abyss. Abyss is pretty important content, right? So Darkhawk, for example. You may have seen Mr. Fantastic take down some Abyss fights before, right? I've definitely posted some Abyss solos before with Mr. Fantastic. But essentially, he's so good for Darkhawk because of all the regen that he has. Even though he doesn't counter the node per se, he doesn't have an armor break that's going to go against it, he doesn't counter robots, but essentially, what you want to do is I personally, when I do this fight, because if ever I go into Abyss for content, I go through Darkhawk, right, Luke Cage, and then I go with Mr. Fantastic for Darkhawk, so I've done this quite a bit. I usually like to ramp up here on the special 2, okay, get the careful study passive, sometimes a special 1 as well, depending on how I go about it, but the ramp up here is pretty simple. Very important that you eat a combo to the face and you lose a lot of your health. That is very, very important. I cannot stress that enough. You have to lose half your health at the beginning of this fight, or else you're not going to be able to get through it. I hope that you can sense my sarcasm. So, point is here, once you get ramped up, it takes a few minutes to ramp up in this fight, but once you are, as you can see, right, check this out. So this is essentially how you do it. You pretty much parry heavy against this guy, okay, and you're going to switch between his modes, and once you use your 2 special 2s, right, as you can see with the Despair Mastery, he is just completely draining because he gains such a massive regen, but we're going to be reversing it by 120% on base, and then with Despair, an additional 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90%. And then if he has the Careful Study 1 as well, that's going to be even more, 105%. The parry, 120%. So you're reversing the regen by a total of up to 240%, which is really a lot of regen to reverse. And as you can see, it's very consistent, and it just keeps going like that, and keeps going like that, and keeps going like that, and eventually they just drop. Now, Mr. Fantastic was pretty much essentially at like 40% health when this fight really started. I could have restarted very easily. It's the first fight in, but I knew he was going to be able to do it. It was never, it was never even a concern to me that maybe he wouldn't be able to get through this fight, because it's so solid for it, right? I don't think we have to watch 6 minutes of that. It's the same thing over and over. But as you can see, wow, look at that. We took 2 hits. We took 2 hits, and that's how much damage the defender did to us. That's crazy. He took us down like to 50% health to start from 2 hits. That's a lot. But regardless, 97 hits in Abyss is definitely very good. Now, his special 1 his special 1 has a lot of utility as well for different situations. Now, you're going to be missing out on a lot of damage when you do this, but if you go in with just the special 1 and you have like that stagger in mind, depending on the fight, that's going to be very powerful to have. Now, this is going to be Footloose, okay? There's a couple other nodes here as well, but Footloose is the important one. So, Footloose is whenever they use a special attack, they gain an unstoppable buff and also an evade buff, okay? So, both of these are buffs. So that means that both of them can be canceled out by the stagger. Check it out. Boom. Goes for the special 1, and he does not have his evade or his unstoppable buff. Okay? And essentially, you can kind of keep this going over and over. Now, I felt like this would be a really fun time to bring in the Dragon Man synergy, which is going to increase our special 1 damage by 50% after he gets the Careful Study passive when Sunspot uses 1 more special 1. So I thought that could be cool. I've never tried out this synergy before. I didn't notice anything too crazy from it. Maybe it's because the special 1 is pretty weak on its own, whether you have a full synergy team with suicides or not, or without it. But yeah, I didn't notice anything too crazy, anything game breaking here. Maybe like the special 2 fully ramped, like, you know, you would notice that. But yeah, I mean, regardless, like I said, if you're going for like strict utility, Mr. Fantastic has it. But in those matchups, you're gonna be missing out on a bit of damage, as you can see. Don't get me wrong, 60 hits in, about 70 seconds in. It's not terrible by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not like amazing damage, you know. I'm going for like the special 2s, and the Fury is so powerful. But that's one thing I love about Mr. Fantastic, is that he is very, very versatile, right? Is that he can do big damage, and he can also just like have that strict utility as well. So let's go for this pretty generic Deadpool here in 6.4.1. We're going to bring in the Council of Reed synergies as well now, the other Mr. Fantastic, and we're going to see, let's say you're doing like a cab event quest, right? And you want to go for Mr. Fantastic. There's about 230,000 health on this Deadpool. That seems like a pretty solid health pool to test out on, right? This is kind of the performance you would see from a 6-star rank 2 Mr. Fantastic with a full synergy team, all right? With no suicides on. This is like a great scenario for Mr. Fantastic. Let's just see how he does, man. Because like I said, Mr. Fantastic on his own is very good, as we've seen in this video. But Mr. Fantastic with his full synergy team is pretty freaking amazing, as we're seeing right here and as we've seen in other fights in this video as well, okay? So I really do think that he is an absolutely top science champ when you can synergize him with the Fantastic Four team, and I think he's a really great science champ when you can. Personally, you know, I would probably go with other options over Mr. Fantastic solo, but when you can synergize him up, he is a lot of fun to use, and he's going to be really great for smaller health pools like Alliance War as well. So yeah, this guy is going to be very good for a lot of stuff for you if you have this guy and you've overlooked him. He doesn't need to be awakened, but he does get a pretty large benefit. And like I said, look at this. 2 special 2s and Deadpool is just dead, man. Didn't even have the chance to go for a special 3. He was just flushed right down the toilet in about 42 hits and about 60 seconds. That's really not too bad at all, man. So as you can see from this video, the past 25 minutes or so, Mr. Fantastic absolutely does have a lot of potential for you and can probably do a lot of things for you with your roster. Even if you already have Void ranked up, you know, they do similar things, but I feel like they each have their strengths. I think that Mr. Fantastic really does just about everything Void does, but just a little bit better with less RNG. Also, like I said, Void kind of really wants that high sig, but Mr. Fantastic doesn't really need it, but he does benefit from a high sig as well. But yeah, man, I think that this pretty much covers everything I wanted to cover in this video. I do hope that you enjoyed watching Mr. Fantastic in this video. I don't know why it just went blurry. What happened there? Hello? Mr. Fantastic, fix it, please. All right, we're good. All right, but that is going to be it for this one. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, drop your boy a big old like. Comment what you think about Mr. Fantastic in the comment section below, and make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any other future Are They Underrated videos coming to you very soon. I'll be seeing you around.